What's up, hoop heads? If you thought the Boston Celtics offseason was going to stay quiet, think again. Because when it goes quiet in the NBA, that's usually the calm before the storm. And right now, the Celtics are in that eerie silence zone. But let's get into it, because even when the big headlines slow down, there's still plenty to talk about in Celtics Nation. Let's start with Nehemias Queta, our big man, our Portuguese prince. Over the weekend, news came out that Queta underwent arthroscopic surgery on his left knee. Now, before anybody panics, it wasn't anything major. It sounds like a standard cleanup. No structural damage, no major setbacks. Just one of those maintenance type surgeries that athletes sometimes need to stay sharp. He got it done after Boston was eliminated in the second round of the playoffs, and according to reports, he's expected to be fully ready for the start of training camp. In fact, Queta is set to suit up for Portugal at Eurobasket, which tips off August 27th. So yeah, if he's planning on playing international ball in a few weeks, you can relax. It wasn't a red flag. It was just some light housekeeping. But let me be real for a second. When I first saw the headline about the surgery, I flinched. Boston's front court depth is already looking thin, and when your starting center goes under the knife the moment he gets the job, that doesn't exactly ease your mind. Especially when we're talking about a guy who's not only expected to fill some serious shoes, but might be the one who has to take that leap this year. But once I read more into it, the concern faded. This isn't a setback. It might actually be a setup for a breakout season. Now, if you're still unsure about Queta's ceiling, let's talk numbers. The dude is heading into year 4. Last season, he played 62 games, averaging 5 points, 4 rebounds, and shot an impressive 65% from the field. And that's in just about 13 minutes per game. Those are low volume minutes, but high efficiency numbers. And let's not ignore the fact that he's giving you nearly a block and a steal per night in that limited time. That's the kind of production that makes you wonder what happens when he finally gets 25-30 minutes a night. Could we be looking at a 10-10 guy with some rim protection? I wouldn't bet against it. This isn't just optimism for optimism's sake. You look at his trajectory. Barely played in Sacramento his first 2 years. Got spot minutes in Boston. And now he's trending toward a starting role. And when you compare him to the other options on the depth chart, his upside is clearly the most intriguing. Luka Garza. Listen, we know what we're getting there. He's got range, sure. He can stretch the floor. He can pile up some counting. Stats, maybe win you a few fantasy matchups. But on defense, it's a rough watch. He hasn't shown he can anchor a defense, not even at a middle of the pack level. Then you look at Xavier Tillman, solid when healthy, no doubt. But health has been a real issue. Last season, he only played 33 games. And for a guy entering his 5th season, that's not the kind of availability you want from someone trying to be part of your core. His best year was back in 2023 when he played 61 games and averaged around 7 points. Respectable numbers, but again, we've kind of seen his ceiling. He's a glue guy, a rotation piece. But if you're talking about someone who could pop, someone who could flip the narrative and take ownership of the center position in Boston, that's Queta. And there's another layer to this. Queta's development isn't happening in a vacuum. He's spending his summer in Portugal, running camps, giving back to his roots and working on his game. That's a guy who's locked in, who's taking ownership of his path in the league. And that means something, not just for him, but for the Celtics. Because if Boston's going to stay competitive while managing the second apron, they need guys like Queta to hit. They need value contracts to turn into impact players. And let's zoom out a bit. This international stretch of basketball we're heading into. It's not just a sideshow. Eurobasket is legit. It's not a preseason runaround. This is where guys like Luka, Giannis, Porzingis, Jokic, they show up, they show out, and they take pride in repping their countries. Queta's going to be out there, and if he shines, that's going to matter. It's going to matter to him, to his confidence, and to how the Celtics evaluate him heading into camp. So yeah, keep an eye on Portugal in this one. Not just because it's Eurobasket, but because it could be the start of a big year for the big man. All right, let's shift gears, because while Queta's getting his shot, the Celtics as a whole are staring at one of the most fascinating crossroads in the NBA. You've got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown locked in. That's your elite wing duo, one of the best in the league. Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard are still under contract. But beyond that, it's a lot of question marks. Baylor Shireman is entering year 2. Jordan Walsh is heading into year 3. Amari Williams is a rookie. Hugo Gonzalez and Max Sugar are probably looking at two-way contracts and spot minutes at best. So here's the question. Is this a retool year, a soft reset, or do the Celtics push all in again and make another title run? And that's where the would you rather game gets interesting. Because when you compare Boston's roster to the rest of the Eastern Conference, the future outlook becomes a real debate. Let's take the Detroit Pistons, for example. Cade Cunningham looks like a star in the making. Jalen Duran has serious upside. Could this be the year he makes the leap from raw talent to fringe all-star? Jaden Ivey, when healthy, brings a ton of offensive juice. And then there's Ausar Thompson, a defensive menace who might end up being one of the best wing defenders in the league. That's a young, hungry core that's still figuring things out, but you can't ignore the ceiling. Then you've got the Orlando Magic. Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, two elite wings who could easily be the next Tatum and Brown type of pairing. Paolo especially, he's knocking on that superstar door. By the end of this upcoming season, you could be having legitimate Tatum versus Paolo conversations. Franz might not be on Jalen's level just yet, but he's right there knocking. That's a duo that's going to be terrifying for a long time. Add in Desmond Bain, some other solid role players, and a clear need at center, and suddenly Orlando is cooking with real ingredients. The Knicks? They're in their prime. Jalen, Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby. That's a serious squad. But they're also expensive, and while they're built to win now, the long-term flexibility just isn't there. Are they better than the Celtics for one season? Maybe, but over 5 years. Give me Boston's core, especially with Kata, Walsh, and Skyman possibly making a jump. You want another team with a case? The Cleveland Cavaliers, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Darius Garland, and Donovan Mitchell. That's a scary group on paper, and they're going to be in the mix for the next couple of years. But what happens after that? Mitchell's future isn't guaranteed in Cleveland. Garland has had health issues. Allen's fit alongside Mobley still raises questions. So yeah, they've got a high floor, but that long-term ceiling, it's murky. Then there's Atlanta, weird mix of young and old. Trae Young is in his prime, Jalen Johnson is a breakout candidate, and Dyson Daniels looks like a future all-defensive guy. But the pieces still don't quite fit. That roster feels like it's constantly waiting for a trade that never comes. Compare that to Boston, where even with gaps, you know what the vision is. Indiana? Love what they're building, but again, Tatum and Brown, that's the trump card. The East is crowded with talent, but very few teams have two wings of that caliber, locked in long term, both under the age of 30. That's a luxury, and it's the reason the Celtics don't need a rebuild, even if this offseason feels quieter than expected. So when we talk about Boston's next 5 years, you got to look at it through that lens. Not every roster is built to last. The Knicks will eventually hit cap walls. The Cavs might lose a star. Detroit and Orlando? They're on the rise, but they're still unproven. Boston has the star power and the infrastructure. If just one of these young guys pans out, Kata, Shireman, Walsh, this window stays wide open. And don't even get me started on the second apron talk. Yeah, it's real. It's limiting. But smart front offices adjust. If you got two supermax guys like Tatum and Brown, you better find value in the margins. And that's where Kata becomes so important. That's where guys like Pritchard, Hauser, and maybe even Amari Williams come in. You're not looking for stars. You're looking for complementary pieces who can punch above their pay grade. It's a new NBA now. The depth wins titles era is fully here. That's why the Celtics are still in the mix. Not because they're perfect, but because they have flexibility and stability at the top. That's rare. And if Kata becomes the guy we think he can be, if Baylor Shireman becomes more than just a shooter, if Walsh finds his stride on defense, that changes the calculus real fast. And while the Celtics are banking on internal development to support their two superstars, there's another layer to this conversation that's gaining momentum. NBA Europe. That's right. The idea that seemed like fantasy a few years ago is starting to gain real traction behind the scenes. And while it might sound like a side story, it actually ties back to the Celtics in more ways than you'd expect. Let me explain. For years, expansion was the hot topic. Everyone thought Seattle was a lock to get their team back. Las Vegas was a sure bet. Mexico City even entered the chat with some buzz. The league had 3 cities lined up, and everybody assumed it was only a matter of time before Adam Silver pulled the trigger. But suddenly, things went quiet. Expansion talk slowed way down, and part of the reason is simple. Money. With a new media rights deal coming in, the owners just got a windfall. The urgency to expand and split that revenue pie with 2 new owners. Gone! But the other reason? Europe. There's been growing momentum around the idea of an NBA-affiliated European league. Not just preseason games overseas, not just exhibition stuff. A league. One that could be structured like Eurobasket or UEFA Champions League style, featuring club teams from all over the continent. Real Madrid, Barcelona, maybe even teams from London, Berlin, Milan. And it's not just a pipe dream. There are real conversations happening, including from major players like LeBron James and Maverick Carter, who are reportedly working on a league with an F1 style structure. Picture 16 to 18 teams, traveling around to major cities playing a mini tournament. Clusters, not an 82-game grind. More like a showcase model with elite level production, limited games, and international fan engagement baked in. Now, whether that version of the league takes off is still up in the air. Personally, that feels like more of a celebrity all-star tour than something that challenges the NBA itself. But a real NBA Europe? That's intriguing. It would provide a legitimate pipeline for European talent. It would offer an alternative to coming to the United States for prospects who'd rather stay close to home. And it would mean more international exposure for the game, which, let's be honest, is already being carried globally by names like Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Victor Wembanyama. But here's where the Celtics get pulled into this. Had the NBA gone through with its original expansion plan, it would have included an expansion draft. And for teams like Boston, that's a tricky spot. You're only allowed to protect a limited number of players on your roster. Tatum and Brown, no-brainers. They'd be protected immediately. Probably Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser too, just because of their cost-effective production. But after that, you're making hard decisions. A guy like Baylor Shireman, you just drafted him. Do you risk exposing him? What about Jordan Walsh, who you've been developing for 2 years? Amari, Williams, Keita? Suddenly, those fringy roster spots become very real targets for new teams looking to scoop up talent. That's not a conversation we need to have today. But if NBA Europe doesn't happen and traditional expansion comes back into focus, Boston will have to prepare for that kind of roster vulnerability. The good news? It doesn't sound like that's happening anytime soon. The current ownership climate isn't begging for expansion. And if a Europe-based league does come to life, that could actually help Boston keep the developmental pieces intact. But let's stay in Europe for a second, because there's more at play than just hypothetical leagues. Eurobasket, which kicks off at the end of August, is the real deal. This isn't like Summer League or G League exhibitions. This is high-level basketball. This is national pride. And Keita isn't just playing for fun. He's representing Portugal on a legitimate international stage against the likes of Luka with Slovenia, Giannis with Greece, Porzingis with Latvia, and Jokic with Serbia. It's a loaded tournament. And if you've never watched Eurobasket before, you're missing out. These guys care. They compete. They play like it's the World Cup, and sometimes even more intensely than in the NBA. Why? Because they're not just representing a franchise. They're representing home. And for someone like Keita, it's a huge opportunity. Think about it. How often does a fringe NBA player get the chance to be the guy on an international stage? This is his chance to dominate, to lead, and to showcase skills that he might not get to flash in the limited minutes he sees with Boston. That matters, not just for his own confidence, but for how the Celtics see him. If he goes out and drops double-doubles every game, alters shots at the rim, shows composure under pressure, it becomes a lot harder to keep him off the floor when camp starts. It also sets a tone, because whether it's Keita, Skyerman, Walsh, or someone else, the Celtics need one of these guys to break out. The second apron isn't going away. The new CBA is designed to punish teams that try to spend their way to titles. You've got 2 Supermax contracts on the books in Tatum and Brown. You have to find value on the fringes. The OKC model, that's the blueprint. Draft well, develop well, lock in your core, and then surround them with young, controllable, athletic talent who can scale up into bigger roles as the stars age. That's why this offseason, as quiet as it seems, might be one of the most important ones for Boston in years. Because while the headlines are about Kata's knee and Eurobasket's schedules behind the scenes, the Celtics are evaluating everything. Who's ready? Who's next? Who can fill the gaps when the stars need help? And if the answers don't come from within, then they'll need to get creative in the margins. And speaking of margins, let's talk about the reality check that's hitting the league. This second apron fear that's freezing trades, slowing down signings, and making front offices sweat. It's real. Teams are scared, not just of the money, but of the restrictions. Go into the second apron and suddenly you can't sign buyout guys. You can't aggregate contracts. You can't take back more salary in trades. You basically lock yourself into your core and hope to build with minimum deals and second round picks. But some teams, they don't care. Look at the Phoenix Suns. We all mocked them. We all laughed. Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker. It sounded good on paper, but no depth, no defense, no flexibility, and they flamed out in spectacular fashion. But you know what? They tried. They saw a window and went for it. They knew they'd pay the price later, but they weren't afraid to swing for the fences. And the Celtics? They might be in that same zone right now. Tatum's entering his prime. Brown's still in his prime. The window is now. So do you play it safe, stash your assets, and hope for internal development? Or do you say, screw it, go into the tax and try to win it all? That's the fork in the road. And that brings us to the other end of this conversation. What happens if Boston doesn't win in this current window? What happens if they come up short again, like they did in 2022 and 2024? At some point, pressure builds. Narrative shift. Tatum and Brown can't win together. They need a true point guard. They don't have a real center. We've heard it all before, and if they don't deliver a banner soon, the outside noise gets louder. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. In an astonishing turn of events that has sent ripples throughout the NBA community, the Boston Celtics appear poised to execute one of the most dramatic roster overhauls in recent memory, reportedly targeting two of the league's most electrifying talents, Kevin Durant and Zach LaVine. This surprising development, if it materializes, could redefine the power dynamics of the Eastern Conference and set the stage for a thrilling new era in Boston. Sources close to the organization hint at intense behind-the-scenes negotiations that have accelerated rapidly in the past few days, suggesting a possible blockbuster deal that would unite Durant's scoring prowess and LaVine's explosive athleticism with the Celtics' established core. The prospect of pairing Durant's veteran leadership and versatile offensive game alongside LaVine's high-flying dynamic style has sparked feverish speculation among analysts and fans alike. The Celtics, historically known for their strategic moves and deep playoff runs, seem to be doubling down on their championship ambitions, willing to make bold decisions that could pay off handsomely. Rumors are swirling that this potential acquisition spree is the brainchild of the Celtics front office, determined to capitalize on a unique opportunity to secure two superstar talents in the same offseason, thereby signaling an aggressive shift in their approach to team building. While nothing has been confirmed, the mere possibility of such a seismic shift has already electrified the league and left rival teams scrambling to assess their own moves. Kevin Durant, one of the most prolific scorers in NBA history, has long been linked to various trade rumors throughout his career. But the notion of him joining the Celtics has ignited a fresh wave of excitement and speculation. Known for his silky smooth shooting, unmatched offensive versatility, and clutch performances, Durant's potential arrival in Boston would instantly elevate the Celtics' status as legitimate championship contenders. Fans and insiders are buzzing with anticipation about how Durant's skill set could complement the Celtics' existing roster, especially with their emphasis on strong defense and fluid ball movement. The synergy between Durant and Boston's young stars, such as Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, is being debated as a game changer that could overwhelm opponents with both scoring depth and defensive resilience. Moreover, Durant's experience in high-stakes playoff environments could provide the leadership and calm under pressure that the Celtics have sometimes lacked in recent postseasons. While Durant's willingness to embrace a new challenge in Boston remains speculative, insiders suggest that the Celtics front office is making every effort to convince him of the exciting possibilities that come with joining a team with such rich history and a promising core. Should this move come to fruition, it would mark a dramatic shift in Durant's career trajectory and potentially redefine the Celtics' championship outlook. Meanwhile, the addition of Zach LaVine would inject an entirely different but equally potent dynamic to the Celtics lineup, providing explosive athleticism and a consistent scoring threat from the perimeter. LaVine's rise from a talented but sometimes inconsistent player to a bona fide star known for highlight reel dunks and clutch three-pointers has made him a highly sought-after commodity in the league. The Celtics' interest in LaVine seems to stem from their desire to diversify their offensive arsenal, adding a player capable of creating his own shot and electrifying crowds with his fearless attacking style. This rumored pairing with Durant also fuels the imagination of fans who envision a backcourt capable of terrorizing defenses with relentless pace, sharpshooting, and aggressive drives to the basket. LaVine's youth and exuberance could mesh well with the Celtics' culture of hard work and competitiveness, creating a vibrant team chemistry that thrives on energy and resilience. Though questions remain about how the Celtics would accommodate LaVine's contract and role alongside their current stars, speculation suggests that the front office is exploring creative solutions to make room for such impactful talent. The potential combination of Durant's veteran savvy and LaVine's explosive flair has the potential to shift the Celtics' offensive identity into a high-octane powerhouse, a prospect that has reignited hope and excitement throughout the fan base. Behind the scenes, whispers of these sweeping changes have sent shockwaves through the league's rumor mill, with insiders speculating on the possible trade scenarios and salary cap maneuvers necessary to bring both Durant and LaVine to Boston. Executing such a deal would likely require significant sacrifices, including the possibility of trading away key role players, future draft picks, or even part of the Celtics' young core. Sources indicate that Celtics management is willing to explore all avenues to make this happen, reflecting a renewed urgency to capitalize on their championship window. This urgency is reportedly fueled by the success of other super teams and the Celtics' desire to avoid stagnation in a fiercely competitive conference. As trade rumors intensify, rival franchises are reportedly scrambling to counter or prepare for the seismic impact that these acquisitions could have on the playoff landscape. The intrigue surrounding these negotiations has reached a fever pitch, with every movement in the Celtics front office closely analyzed for clues. Industry insiders suggest that even if a formal announcement is still weeks away, the Celtics' intentions are clear: to reshape their roster in a way that maximizes their chances of bringing a championship banner back to Boston. The sheer magnitude of this rumored move has made it one of the most talked about potential transactions in recent NBA history, fueling non-stop debate across sports media platforms. While the Celtics fans hold their breath, the NBA world watches with bated breath, eager to see if this rumored blockbuster deal will indeed come to fruition and alter the league's competitive landscape. The prospect of uniting two of the league's most captivating players in Boston offers tantalizing possibilities for both on-court performance and the franchise's long-term legacy. Whether this bold gambit will pay off or unravel remains uncertain, but the anticipation surrounding the potential partnership of Kevin Durant and Zach LaVine in Celtics green is undeniable. Speculation abounds over how coaches will manage rotations, how teammates will adjust to new roles, and how opponents will strategize against this formidable new lineup. Even skeptics admit that the Celtics' willingness to take such a bold step is a testament to their hunger for greatness and their refusal to settle for anything less than a championship. As the trade deadline approaches and official confirmations remain elusive, one thing is certain: the Boston Celtics have shaken the NBA landscape with whispers of an unprecedented star-studded lineup that could very well change the course of the upcoming season and beyond. Fans, analysts, and rivals alike will be watching closely as this story unfolds, waiting to see if these rumors transform from whispers into one of the greatest NBA stories ever told. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.